Now, today I'm going to profile one particular American communist. Now, the American Communist Party has got about 5,000 members. They are very, very disciplined. They're very active. They're working 24/7 to tear this country down. Everything that's good about America, they hate it and they want to bring it down. And I'm going to choose one of them because most Americans really don't understand communism. They don't understand that even communism exists, or that it's really the dominant political force in the country right now. That would be a statement that most Americans would just laugh at. But virtually everything that's going wrong in America today can be laid at the feet of the communists. The Communist Party USA, Liberation Road, Democratic Socialists of America, and the many allied organizations out there. And plus those who have infiltrated the bureaucracy, the education system, etc., etc., etc. The revolutionary movement is all through America, the churches, the government, the unions, the media, etc., and it is working to bring this country down. And most Americans have zero idea. So I'm going to focus on one person today, a woman called Judith Leblanc. I'm sure you've never heard of her, but she's had a huge influence on this nation. And I hope by the end of this show, you'll realize just how much damage one individual, disciplined, trained communist can do. And I hope you'll start to think about how we need to deal with this problem, how we need to actually start investigating these people, exposing these people, prosecuting these people in many instances for what they are doing, because much of what they are doing is illegal. Right, now Judith Leblanc joined the Communist Party USA back in Massachusetts in the mid-1970s. 1974, I think it was. She's a Native American. She's from the Caddo tribe of Oklahoma. But you can tell by her accent she's lived most of her life in the Northeast. Well, when she hasn't been traveling all over the world, that is. But anyway, so she joined the party early on. She's really almost 50 years service now. And she served on the party's leadership body. She served on the Organization Commission, the body that really coordinates the organization, very important. She's also served for many years on the party's Peace and International Solidarity Commission. Now, what this body does is coordinate peace movement activity and solidarity with foreign communist movements, terrorist groups, foreign communist governments, etc. Now, the Communist Party USA is part of an international movement. It works with the Communist Party of China, it works with the Communist Party of Russia, Communist Party of Cuba, of Iran, of Iraq, of Japan, of Brazil. All over the world you'll find the Communist Party has its tentacles out. From Vietnam to Africa to Europe, the Communist Party USA is an international organization, and Judith Leblanc was right in the middle of this for about 15 or 20 years.
The rich have pushed capitalism to the brink, and after 500 years, capitalism hasn't solved any basic needs of the people. The solution has got to be a socialist system.
So she would travel overseas all over the place. She would go to Australia, she would go to Japan, she would go to the United Kingdom. Every place where some agitation could be done, she was there. Now, the reason the Communist Party is so heavily involved in the peace movement, and the peace movement in its entirety is really a communist movement, is because the peace movement is the communist main tool for disarming the West, for disarming Britain, for disarming the United States, for disarming Europe, for disarming Australia or New Zealand or Canada or Japan or Taiwan. The communists start these peace movements. It's all about laying down the guns, disarming. We don't need weapons. We've got to get rid of atomic weapons. We've got to get rid of landmines. We've got to do all this because peace is what everybody wants. And we all do want peace. But sensible people in the West understand that peace is guaranteed through strength, because there are evil people in the world who will take your country from you if you can't defend it. And anybody who lives in a rough neighborhood understands this. If you do not defend your home, if you do not have burglar alarms or dogs or some form of security, you're going to get robbed. People are going to take your stuff. Well, if rich and powerful countries don't have strong militaries, bad people from the Communist Party of China, the Communist Party of Russia, etc., will take their stuff. Communism is a system bent on world domination and destroying capitalism, destroying the fabric of Western society. It still has a goal of world domination. So the communists have always had the peace movement to work and agitate for US disarmament, for French disarmament, for British disarmament. And a friend of mine who studied in Moscow as a communist, and he said there in Moscow, when they were training at Lenin's Institute for Higher Learning, one guy said to him, he said, Professor Medvedev, I think his name was, he said to my friend John, he said, John, we have many clever people in the Soviet Union, but no one has ever come up with a weapon as powerful as the peace movement. So Judith Leblanc was heavily into the peace movement for several years. And the peace movement was really all about just disarming the West. She was also very heavily involved in the Palestinian cause, because the Palestinian cause is what is used by the communists to beat America's ally Israel. And you see this movement has gained huge traction in recent times. They call Israel a racist apartheid state. There's a worldwide campaign orchestrated by the communists to bring Israel down, because Israel is the best ally that America has in the Middle East, and it's a very valuable one. And so the communists want to take out two countries. They want to take out Israel and they want to take out the United States. So they're using the Palestinians to basically as a cause to beat Israel with. You know, Judith Leblanc in the early 2000s was in the Middle East on a regular basis. She was meeting with people like the Palestinian ambassador to the United Nations, Riyad Mansour. She even had her hand kissed by the famous terrorist Yasser Arafat, a KGB-trained operative. So she was mixing in some pretty serious company. In November 2010, Judith Leblanc even addressed the United Nations on the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. So that's how she got to address this world body. You know, who is she? She's a communist from America, but she was addressing a world body on behalf of the Palestinian cause. Didn't mention the communist bit during the speech. I'm sure you'll understand that.
It is an honor to address this special meeting today. In the past, I've attended these important UN events. The first time was just after returning from participating in a peace delegation to the West Bank during the Second Intifada. Upon my return, I went on a national tour, speaking at community centers, churches, synagogues, and mosques. It is with sadness that I say that I could give nearly the same speech today as then about the cruel, inhumane realities of the Israeli occupation and the stalled political negotiations. As a member of the National Steering Committee of the U.S. campaign to end the Israeli occupation and organizer for Peace Action, the largest peace organization in the U.S., I am mindful of the opportunities and the challenges we face in a world with many conflicts, inequalities, and pressures to undermine international institutions and law. The International Day of Solidarity is a moment to examine the opportunities and the challenges in the fight for the implementation of all relevant UN resolutions, including the right of return for economic and social rights for Palestinian refugees, return to the 1967 borders, and against U.S. military aid to the Israeli occupation.
For many years, she was the national organizer of United for Peace and Justice. That was the main peace umbrella organization in the United States. It had a lot of Freedom Road people and a lot of fronts for the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, which is a pro-Chinese Communist Party, Democratic Socialists of America, League of Revolutionaries for a New America. All of these many, many peace movements, virtually all of them were run by Marxists outright communists, socialists, or sympathizers. And for several years, Judith Leblanc was the national coordinator of these organizations. She was leading the charge against the Iraq War in the early 2000s.